The project boss, my name is Jax Miller, and I followed Uncle Rick into the city to haul drywall and pour concrete. On my very first day, I saw the mythical head of the project, a woman so beautiful she looked like a movie star. I was gnawing on a breakfast burrito at the time, and I noticed her face was stark white, her lips drained of color. I figured city women must skip meals to stay thin. Feeling generous, I broke off a warm half of my burrito and offered it to her. "Hey, miss, must be hungry, huh? Get some fuel in you." Her beautiful face instantly twisted into horror and revulsion. It was as if I hadn't offered her food, but a pile of garbage. The next second, she coldly ordered Uncle Rick, "Get him off my site. I don't want to see this kind of filthy trash on my property." I was stunned, but before I could move, a bundle of rebar dropped suddenly from the construction crane's boom. It was heading straight for her. I reacted purely on instinct and lunged. The first day of work, the sun was scorching, hot enough to fry the skin right off you. The construction site smelled of dust and sweat. That was the smell of us. A sleek, black luxury SUV, silent as a shark, slid up to the gate. It looked totally alien against the piles of steel and cement. The door opened, and a woman stepped out. She was wearing a blinding white designer pantsuit. Her heels clicked on the loose dirt like a swan wading into a mud puddle. She was our project's legendary Ice Queen, Victoria Sterling. Uncle Rick, our foreman, immediately bent double, rushing forward. "Ms. Sterling, I didn't expect you personally. Tough day, sir. You shouldn't have come in this heat." Victoria Sterling ignored him. Her gorgeous face was colder than ice. A guy next to me nudged my ribs. "Jax, see her? That's the big boss. Heard she's worth hundreds of millions." I was chewing my sandwich and nodded. I didn't know what hundreds of millions meant. I only knew that wearing that much white on a construction site meant she had rocks in her head. She was clutching her stomach, her lips devoid of color. She was swaying, looking like a strong breeze would knock her over. I figured, damn, these city women are weird, starving themselves for looks. Judging by her state, she was probably starving. I broke off half of the still-warm pulled pork sandwich I was holding and offered it. "Hey, miss, must be hungry? Get some fuel in you." The air went dead silent. All eyes pivoted to me. Victoria Sterling looked like she'd seen a ghost, stumbling backward. The look she gave me was one I'll never forget. Pure, visceral disgust and contempt. She looked at me the way you look at a pile of rotting sewage. My hand froze midair, the sandwich burning my palm. "Get your filthy thing away from me." Her voice was soft, but every word cut like a razor. I was bewildered. I saw she was about to faint from hunger. Was that wrong? She turned to Uncle Rick, her eyes filled with frost. "Control your crew. If this happens again, your contract is terminated immediately." Uncle Rick's face went white. She turned back to me, adding syllable by syllable. "You, don't bother coming back tomorrow." My head buzzed. Before I could process it, Uncle Rick smacked me hard on the back of the head, almost knocking me off balance. "You idiot. Apologize to Ms. Sterling now." He looked seconds from kneeling, his voice trembling. "Ms. Sterling, he's fresh out of the sticks. He doesn't know etiquette. Please be the bigger person." I stiffened, a surge of heat rising in my chest. Having my dignity stomped on felt worse than the sun. Apologize for what? I shot back. I saw she was about to pass out, and I offered her a sandwich. Is that a crime? My defiance stripped away the last of her patience. "Get rid of him." She dropped the 4 words and turned to walk away, unwilling to spare me another glance. I felt the blood drain from my body. Just then, a sickening screech of snapping metal came from above, followed by the crew's frantic screams. "Look out!" My brain didn't catch up. My body moved first. Like a predator diving for its prey, I tackled the blinding white woman, slamming us both to the dusty ground. Crash! The ground shook with a monstrous impact. A massive bundle of thick rebar, heavy as a millstone, smashed into the exact spot where we had just been standing, gouging a deep crater in the earth. Absolute silence. I lay on top of her, breathing in the expensive perfume mixed with the earthy smell of dirt. She felt soft and smelled incredible, but I wasn't thinking about that. I scrambled up instantly, brushing the dust off my clothes. I quickly checked my arms and legs. Good. No injuries. I wouldn't miss work tomorrow. Oh, right. I was fired. No work tomorrow. Victoria's assistant came shrieking over, frantically helping her up. "Ms. Sterling, are you okay?" "Ms. Sterling." Her $1,000 white suit was now covered in mud and dust, utterly ruined. She stared at me, her eyes wide with shock and fear, a complex mixture of emotions. I blurted out the first thing that came to mind. "Boss, you absolutely can't be hurt. If you're out of commission, Who are we supposed to collect our paychecks from? There are hundreds of us depending on this job. Any expression Victoria Sterling might have prepared, gratitude, relief, or anything else, jammed in her throat. Her face shifted from ghost white to iron gray, and then from iron gray to blazing red, redder than any brick on the site. I ignored her, turning to Uncle Rick and the others who were still slack-jawed. Uncle Rick, what are you staring at? Go check who the hell messed up the safety protocols. Trying to kill people out here. My roar snapped everyone back to reality, and the crew scrambled into chaos, inspecting the rigging. My professional focus forced Victoria Sterling to truly look at me for the first time. This man had just saved her life, yet his primary thought was the payroll. This man had just brushed off a near-death experience, yet his primary concern was safety accountability. She stopped me just as I was about to join the inspection team, her voice dry. What is your name? I was already annoyed and replied, curtly, Jax Miller. Why ask for my name? Was she going to dock my last paycheck? I was out of here anyway. I grumbled internally and walked off, leaving her standing there, watching my back, her gaze so complicated it could wring water. Uncle Rick chased after me, ready to yell again. You stupid bastard. You nearly gave me a heart attack. What kind of nonsense did you say to the boss? I wave him off. I'm already fired. What do I care? I thought that was the end of it. My first job back in the city lasted one day, netted me $300, cost me my dignity, and almost cost me my life. What miserable luck. The next day, I was packing my few belongings, ready to get lost. But Uncle Rick stopped me. Jax, hold on. Ms. Sterling sent word. You don't have to leave. I paused. Not leaving? The woman didn't think I was dirty anymore. Just as I was wondering, a man in a sharp suit and tie found me. It was Victoria's assistant. He walked into our shed, which smelled of sweat and old boots, holding his nose in undisguised distaste. He pulled a thick envelope from a delicate leather briefcase and handed it to me. His tone was dismissive, like tipping a pauper. Ms. Sterling's reward for you. The debt for saving her life is settled. We're square. I took it and opened it. A thick stack of crisp bills. Easily $20,000. That was about what I could save busting my ass for a whole year. Everyone in the shack craned their necks, their eyes wide and glittering. Holy cow, Jax. You hit the jackpot. 20,000. That's how many tons of concrete, man. Uncle Rick was excitedly rubbing his hands together, desperately signaling me to take the money and say thanks. Go thank Miss Sterling. Quick, thank her. I held the stack of cash, but felt no joy. Money was good. It could pay my sister's college tuition, help build a new house back home. But the memory of that woman's hateful gaze yesterday flashed before my eyes. Filthy trash. Get rid of him. Those words were nailed into my heart. Yesterday she looked down on me, tossing me out like garbage. Today I save her life, and she uses money to buy off a favor? Square? Was Jax Miller's life, was Jax Miller's dignity, only worth 20 grand? A scorching anger surged through me. I threw the thick stack of bills right back into the assistant's chest. You tell her this. Jax Miller doesn't save people for money. She looked down on me yesterday, and today she thinks she can buy my life back with cash. Tell her to shove it. My voice wasn't loud, but the whole shed heard me clearly. Everyone was stunned silent. Uncle Rick was hopping mad, pointing at me, speechless. The assistant was also frozen, clutching the crumpled cash. His face flushed red, then pale. He had clearly never met such an ungrateful lowlife. He scurried away, defeated. The toxic resentment the humiliation had caused finally vented just a little. Damn, that felt good. Meanwhile, in the CEO's top-floor office, Victoria Sterling was watching the security monitor feed. I was on the screen, stiff-necked and stubborn. She asked her assistant, "Did he really say that?" Word for word. The assistant nodded fearfully. Victoria Sterling stared at the man on the screen, dirty but standing straight, spine rigid, and felt a wave of frustration. This was the first time she had encountered a problem money couldn't solve. The first time she'd met a person she couldn't buy. For the first time, she felt an interest in Jax Miller that neither wealth nor power could explain. She decided to confront him herself. She wanted to see just how hard the spine of this concrete hauler named Jax Miller truly was. Noon. The sun was at its fiercest. We were all hunkered down in the shade, noisily eating from our lunchboxes. The red ribs, it was a simple lunch. Tortillas stuffed with salty ham and cheese, plus Uncle Rick's wife's homemade barbecue ribs, dripping with sauce. To us, this was gourmet. Suddenly, the sleek, black Cullinan pulled up again at the site entrance. All eating sound stopped. Under the collective gaze of the workers, Victoria Sterling stepped out. Today she was in a black pencil skirt suit, but she still wore those killer high heels. She carried an expensive-looking picnic basket, treading gingerly toward us, sinking slightly with every uncertain step. She looked like a peacock who had wandered into a chicken coop. All eyes on the site focused on her. Then, they collectively shifted to me. My scalp prickled. I wished the ground would swallow me whole. What the hell did this woman want now? She stopped 3 feet away from me, frowning slightly as she looked down at my lunchbox near my feet. Then, she held out the elegant basket. I apologized for my previous remarks. This is lunch. Her voice was still icy, but I could detect a note of discomfort. The guys next to me were gawking. Uncle Rick was so excited he dropped his sandwich. I felt hundreds of eyes boring into my back, worse than the sun. I took the basket and opened it. Foie gras, caviar, and a few slices of raw, fancy meat I couldn't name. Fussy, arranged like an art exhibit. There was maybe enough food to fill a single tooth cavity. I looked up at her, asking honestly, "Boss, this meal has gone in 2 bites. Can you actually fill up on this?" She froze, clearly having never considered the question. "Can you do a full day of heavy labor after eating this?" I pressed. Her face started to crumble. I didn't wait for her answer. I plunged my greasy chopsticks into my lunchbox, picking up the biggest, fattest piece of barbecue rib. I tentatively held the glistening meat right up to her mouth. "Here, try this. This is the good stuff. 1 bite lasts you all day." The oily tip of my chopstick nearly touched her expensive lips. She was a germaphobe, Uncle Rick told me. She looked terrified, recoiling as if she'd been electrocuted. Her high heel twisted, and she nearly fell. Someone couldn't hold it in and snorted out a laugh. Instantly, the entire construction site erupted in a thunderous roar of laughter. The guys were doubled over, slapping their thighs and stomping the ground. I had successfully returned all the awkwardness to her. Her face cycled through white, red, and purple, eventually settling on black. She was shaking with fury, pointing at me, unable to get a single word out. But looking at my clear, innocent eyes, she couldn't bring herself to explode. She seemed to realize that I wasn't trying to intentionally humiliate her. I genuinely thought my barbecue rib was better than her foie gras. Finally, she stamped her foot hard and promptly got it stuck in the mud. She had no choice but to turn and retreat in humiliation. She left behind a trail of laughter and the hot, steaming barbecue rib I still held. Uncle Rick leaned in, lowering his voice, a look of horror mixed with admiration. "Jax, you my boy are stone-cold nuts." I took a bite of my tortilla, mumbling, "I just feel bad for her, eating that fancy crap every day. No wonder she almost starves herself." Uncle Rick stared at me, his eyes complex. He whispered, "Jax, does that woman have a thing for you?" I nearly choked on my bite. From that day on, Victoria Sterling came to the site more often than the project inspectors. She stopped dressing like she was going to a red carpet gala, switching to flats and sharp pantsuits. But her do not approach aura still made the crew scatter when she appeared. She used the excuse of inspection to wander the site daily. Her eyes always found me, deliberately or not. It made me incredibly uneasy. I couldn't concentrate on my work. I started wondering if this woman had a screw loose. I saved her life, and now she was stalking me? One afternoon, she showed up again. She was carrying a square box. She walked straight up to me and handed it over. "For you." I was suspicious. "More foie gras and caviar?" "Boss, I honestly can't stomach that stuff." Her mouth twitched, clearly recalling the previous incident. "Not food." "Open it." I eyed it suspiciously and opened the box. Inside lay something glittering gold. I squinted. It was a hard hat, pure gold, studded with shimmering crystals. It reflected the sunlight so brightly it was practically blinding. I held the thing, speechless for a long moment. Was this really a safety helmet? I looked like I was wearing a disco ball on my head. Victoria Sterling looked at my reaction with a subtle expression of, "Praise me now." I had it custom-made. Used the world's most advanced material. It's completely safe. I finally couldn't hold back. "Boss, are you crazy?" Her expression froze solid. I held the absurd, flashy hat, feeling insulted. If I wear this to work, I won't get killed by falling steel. I'll get killed by my crew laughing at me first. Besides, this thing is blindingly gold. It's asking to be stolen. What if I chip a crystal while hauling concrete? Can I afford to replace it? I shoved the ridiculous hat back in her arms. "Boss, this is zero help. If you really want us to be safe, go fix the broken AC in our bunkhouse. We can't sleep because it's so hot, and working tired is what causes accidents." Victoria Sterling was speechless, utterly silenced by my bluntness. She stood in the dust, clutching the ridiculously expensive crystal-studded hard hat, forced for the first time to deeply question her logic. The crew around us was biting back laughter, their shoulders shaking violently. Uncle Rick, hiding around a corner, was squatting and clutching his stomach. After Victoria Sterling made another humiliated retreat, Uncle Rick approached me, looking grave. "Jax, I've figured out. That woman, she's absolutely smitten with you." I roll my eyes. Smitten with me? She's probably just smitten with my ability to lift heavy things. Stop dreaming and get back to work. I said that, but inside I was uneasy. City women's minds. How the hell were you supposed to read them? Food, hats. What was her game? The story quickly spread across the site. The icy female CEO was clumsily trying to court a rough construction worker. Jax Miller, became the biggest joke and source of gossip on the site. I hated it. I just wanted to quietly haul concrete, earn money, and go home. Victoria Sterling's presence was messing up my whole life. To avoid her, I started volunteering to deliver materials to the project office, hoping to miss her inspection window. Instead of avoiding the wolf, I walked straight into the lion's den. I was carrying a stack of blueprints to the office that day. The area was quiet. Only Victoria Sterling's office door was slightly ajar, and I could hear her voice, strained with anger. "Mr. Hayes, I demand you speak to me with respect." Curious, I peeked through the gap. She was on a video conference. On the screen was a slick, greasy-looking man smiling smugly. "Come on, Ms. Sterling, don't get upset. How am I disrespecting you? I'm just saying, engineering is a man's world. Women like you should stick to making decisions in the office. Don't run around the construction site. It's too harsh for your delicate skin. You might get sunburned." The comment was so sleazy and patronizing it made me sick. Victoria Sterling was pale with rage, but her polished upbringing meant she could only repeat the same phrases. "You are shameless. This is blatant sexism." The man on the screen, Trevor Hayes, laughed harder. "Oh, Ms. Sterling, don't put it that way. I'm just concerned about you." I couldn't stand it anymore. What kind of man bullies a woman like that? I kicked the door open and stormed in. Victoria Sterling jumped, startled, staring at me. I ignored her, marching straight to the computer screen and leaning into the face of Trevor Hayes. "What the hell did you just say?" I launched a construction site special. Trevor Hayes' smile instantly froze. I pointed at his face on the screen and unleashed my full, unpolished fury. "You greasy, soft-handed worm. You couldn't tell a shovel from a spoon. What the hell do you know about engineering? Look at that pale face. You got kidney problems? Ever hauled a bag of cement? Ever poured concrete? Where the hell were you blowing AC while we were risking our lives under the sun building this thing? It's a man's world. You call yourself a man? Take off that cheap suit and come to the site. Let's see who can piss further." I went off in one continuous, furious stream, not repeating a single insult. Trevor Hayes, on the other end, went from shock to anger, then purple, finally speechless and wide-eyed. When I finished, I reached out and slammed the laptop shut. Slam! The world was quiet. The office was dead silent. Victoria Sterling stared at me, the usual ice and scrutiny gone from her eyes for the first time. In its place was something I couldn't read. I felt a little awkward and scratched my head. "Boss, you can't reason with guys like that. You gotta be more unreasonable than they are. Cuss them out until their ancestors blush, and they'll shut up." She looked at me, and then, suddenly, she laughed. It wasn't the polite, fake laugh from before, or the cold laugh born of irritation. The sinking foundation, it was a genuine, heartfelt laugh, like ice finally cracking and spring arriving. When she laughed, that perpetually cold face suddenly came alive, and she looked breathtakingly beautiful. I admit for a second I stared. Damn, the woman was actually gorgeous when she smiled. After that day, the way Victoria Sterling looked at me completely changed. The scrutiny and curiosity were gone, replaced by something bordering on tenderness. I was startled by my own thought. I was a laborer. I didn't know anything about tenderness. But I could feel she wasn't annoyed by me anymore, and she stopped sending weird gifts. She would just come to the site every day and silently stand nearby, watching me haul concrete. She would watch for a whole afternoon. It made my skin crawl, and the crew teased me mercilessly every day. "Jax, the CEO's here to see you again." I think Jax is officially a kept man now. I ignored them, focused only on finishing the job, earning my pay, and going home. Late one night, a massive storm suddenly broke out. Rain hammered against the corrugated iron roof of the bunkhouse, making sleep impossible. Suddenly, Uncle Rick kicked the door open and burst in. "Get the hell up, everybody! The foundation pit is flooding and about to collapse. We need all hands on deck now." Everyone jolted awake, scrambling out of bed, grabbing rain gear, and rushing out. When we reached the edge of the pit, everyone gasped. The usually dry foundation was now a deep pond. The soil at the edges was actively sloughing off under the relentless rain. If this continued, the whole pit would collapse, and months of work would be ruined. Worse, Victoria Sterling had somehow also made it to the site. She was wearing a raincoat, holding a flashlight, standing right at the most dangerous edge of the pit, shouting orders into her phone. Activate all pumps. Move. Sandbags. I need more sandbags here now. In this chaos, she, a single woman, was calmer than many of us men. For the first time, I felt a genuine respect for her. Just then, her foot slipped. She cried out, tumbling down the muddy slope. Ms. Sterling. The assistant's scream was torn apart by the wind and rain. Everyone panicked. In the confusion, I shoved through the crowd and, without thinking, slid down after her. Mud splashed into my face, and I barely managed to grab her before she rolled into the deepening water. Are you hurt? I shouted over the storm. She was clutching her ankle, too choked by pain to speak. Her face was paper white. Twisted my ankle. I saw her foot was bent at an unnatural angle. It was streaming water. She couldn't stand. I didn't hesitate, crouching down in front of her. Get on. Don't waste time. She hesitated for a second. Rain streamed down her face, indistinguishable from tears. Finally, without a word, she wrapped her arms around my neck and clung to my broad back. I gritted my teeth, scrambling up the slippery slope with her on my back. She was light, but she felt like a fire burning against me. I carried her to safe ground and was about to set her down, but she held on tight to my neck. Don't worry about me. Focus on the rescue, she yelled in my ear. I had no choice but to hold her on my back and take the walkie-talkie handed to me by a crewmate. Teams 2 and 3 move to the east leak point. Pump crew, get the backup pump connected. If I don't hear it running in 3 minutes, I hold you personally responsible. Old Man Joe, take a few guys and reinforce the western slope. I carried the CEO of the project, directing hundreds of men through the storm with a raw, hoarse voice. My commands were clear and methodical, far from what you'd expect from a simple laborer. The rain soaked my hair and clothes, chilling me, but her body was pressed tight against my back, transferring her warmth to me. I could feel her steady breathing and the desperate tightening of her arms around my neck. This woman, who smelled of sweat and mud mixed with expensive perfume, felt a security she'd never known before. By the time dawn broke, the rain had stopped and the danger was contained. Everyone collapsed into the mud, exhausted. I carried her to her car and told her assistant to rush her to the hospital. As I turned to leave, she called out my name. Jax Miller, you're back. I looked back and realized my back was burning. I pulled off my drenched undershirt. There were deep, bloody scratches carved into my skin, her nails. Seeing the wounds, her eyes instantly welled up. She reached in her bag and pulled out a pristine white silk handkerchief, intending to wipe the mud from my face. I took it from her, not looking, and wiped the mud and grit from my face with one rough swipe. I stuffed the now black and filthy handkerchief into my pocket. It's nothing, small cuts. Boss, you need to get to the hospital. With that, I turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd, my good deed complete. In the car, Victoria Sterling watched my retreating figure, clutching another handkerchief in her hand. She didn't speak for a long time. She was utterly smitten. After the storm rescue, I became famous on the site. Not just because I commanded the rescue while carrying the boss, but because of Victoria Sterling's drastic change in attitude toward me. She no longer looked at me secretly. She openly brought me water and towels, though I always rebuffed her with, "Boss, don't distract me from my work." But the crew's stares had evolved from amusement to seeing me as the future husband of the CEO. Uncle Rick pestered me daily to seize the opportunity and secure my future. I was completely fed up. Meanwhile, our project, thanks to the swift and decisive handling of the crisis, received commendations from the general contractor and was far ahead of other construction sites. This success stirred up trouble. Trevor Hayes, the man I had humiliated in the video call and a project manager for a competitor, couldn't stand it. He saw Victoria Sterling as his nemesis. Through his contacts, he quickly got wind of the rumors about Victoria constantly visiting the site and showing special attention to me, the construction worker. A malicious plan began to form in his mind. He wanted to kill two birds with one stone, destroy Victoria Sterling's project and ruin her reputation in the industry, and punish me by making her watch her love interest thrown into jail. He paid heavily to bribe one of our material suppliers and a small team leader in charge of the warehouse. One moonless night, a truck without license plates quietly drove onto the site. Under the cover of darkness, they swapped out a shipment of structural grade steel meant for load-bearing pillars with identical-looking cheap counterfeit material. At the same time, Trevor Hayes had someone forge a bank transfer record. The amount, $100,000. The recipient, me, Jax Miller. The next day, during a routine inspection, the third-party inspection company coincidentally discovered the problematic steel. The entire project was shut down immediately. The police quickly launched an investigation. The forged bank transfer record, coupled with the tearful testimony of the bribe team leader, pointed all the fingers straight at me. It was him, Jax Miller. I saw him meeting secretly with a stranger a few days ago. He even told me he was short on cash and was looking for a quick score. My mind was reeling as two police officers cuffed me. I saw the shocked, suspicious, and disbelieving faces of Uncle Rick and the crew. I listened to the team leader's weeping accusations. I had no defense. For the first time in my 20-something years, I realized what it meant to be utterly framed. They might not have believed I would cut corners, but the transfer record was real. $100,000 had truly appeared in my bank account. I was cuffed as a suspect in commercial fraud and led away. Through the window of the police car, I saw Victoria Sterling running toward me like a maniac, but I couldn't hear what she was screaming. I felt like the sky was collapsing. The interrogation room lights were blindingly white. I sat there for over 24 hours without saying a word. What was I supposed to say? That I didn't know where the $100,000 came from? Who would believe that? That I was framed? Where was the proof? I was a laborer, without power or influence. How could I fight them? I was resigned to my fate. Just as despair was setting in, the interrogation room door was slammed open. Victoria Sterling rushed in, her eyes bloodshot, her hair messy, completely stripped of her usual high-end mighty corporate poise. She was followed by several sharp-suited attorneys. She marched right up to me and, in front of all the officers, looked me straight in the eye and spoke word for word. "I believe you." Those 3 words shattered the tension I had held for over a day. Tears fell uncontrollably. Outside of my parents, she was the first person to unconditionally believe me. She turned to the police, her voice low but carrying an undeniable weight of command. "I offer the full reputation of my company, Sterling Group, as collateral. He, Jax Miller, is absolutely incapable of this crime. There has been a monumental mistake." She immediately ordered the city's top legal team behind her to take over my case. The news spread like wildfire. The heir to the Sterling Group was risking her entire company's reputation for a construction worker. The company board erupted, pressuring her to immediately distance herself from me. The rumors outside were nasty, saying we had an illicit relationship and that the current situation was just a disagreement over how to split the dirty money. Facing pressure the size of a mountain, Victoria Sterling's response was to hold a press conference. Under the flashbulbs of the city's media, she stood firm. "Jax Miller is a hero of our company, not a criminal. The hero's clearing. The Sterling Group will pursue any slander against his character to the fullest extent of the law." Her actions shocked everyone. This was nothing short of a massive gamble. If she won, she would gain prestige. If she lost, she and I would sink together. I watched the woman who declared war on the world for me on the detention center television. My heart churned. For the first time, I understood the abstract concept of gratitude. Soon, she came to see me, separated by the cold steel bars. I saw she looked haggard, the dark circles under her eyes thick and bruised. Yet, her gaze remained steady. "Don't worry. Tell me every detail you know. Anything unusual, any strange person. I will get you out." I looked at her bloodshot eyes, and the hardest part of my heart softened. For the first time, I didn't push her away or reply impatiently. Instead, my voice was raw as I quietly said, "Thank you." Her efforts felt like restitution for all her past misunderstandings and arrogance. I pushed down the turmoil and started trying to recall details. Swapping out structural steel is a huge operation. It makes noise. The night watchmen and the patrol crews couldn't have missed it entirely. I gave her a starting point. With the power of Victoria Sterling's legal team and her personal surety, I was quickly granted bail. Stepping out of the detention center into the sunlight, I realized the sun didn't shine as brightly as the look in her eyes when she burst into the interrogation room. I didn't go home. I went straight back to the site. Uncle Rick and the crew swarmed me. Their eyes held no suspicion anymore, only shame and concern. "Jax, we're so sorry we doubted you. We knew you weren't that kind of guy." Looking at these men I sweated and ate dirt with, my eyes grew warm. I explained the situation and my suspicions to everyone. Finally, I looked at them and spoke word for word. "Guys, that son of a bitch wasn't just trying to hurt Jax Miller. He was trying to destroy all of our jobs. If this project collapses, we all pack up and go home broke. Who's going to feed our families?" The crew instantly grew agitated. Damn it. Who was the bastard? Jax, you tell us what to do, and we'll follow you. Even if we have to turn this site upside down, we'll drag that jerk out. That was the reaction I was waiting for. I looked at them, feeling renewed confidence. I said, everyone think hard. That night the steel was swapped. Did anyone see anything out of the ordinary? Any strange people or vehicles? With the collective memory of the hundreds of laborers, a night patrolman slapped his forehead. I remember, late that night, I saw a truck without plates driving out the back gate. I thought it was strange. All our site vehicles are logged. That one was completely unfamiliar. We had a lead. I immediately told Victoria Sterling. She used her corporate power to secure all the municipal surveillance footage around the site. We traced the truck's movements. Eventually, we tracked the vehicle and its terrified driver to a scrapyard. Faced with irrefutable video evidence and the pressure from Victoria's lawyers, cooperate and we'll be lenient. Resist and we'll be harsh. The driver quickly cracked. He spilled the whole story, naming Trevor Hayes and the bribe team leader. The truth was revealed. When the police stormed Trevor Hayes' office, he was casually sipping coffee, waiting to see Victoria Sterling's downfall. When the cold handcuffs clicked on his wrists, he finally realized he had lost everything. I was not only exonerated, but became the hero of the entire project. The Sterling Group held a special commendation ceremony for me, complete with a generous bonus. Victoria Sterling presented the award herself. On the stage, she looked at me, her eyes shining like stars. Everyone assumed that the next step was the poor boy marrying the rich girl and reaching the pinnacle of success. Even I, for a fleeting moment, thought so too. But when the noise faded and I looked at the long string of zeros in my bank account, I felt profoundly empty. I made a decision. The project crisis was averted, and my sister's next year of tuition was secured. I sought out Uncle Rick and Victoria Sterling to tender my resignation. I'm done. Uncle Rick stared wide-eyed. What foolishness are you talking about? Everyone in the company respects you now, Ms. Sterling, practically. Victoria Sterling cut him off. She looked at me calmly and asked why. I said, the city is too complicated. Too many traps and schemes. I can't fight them, and I don't want to fight them. I just want to go home, tend my little piece of land, and live a quiet life. I got lucky this time. Next time, I was scared. Victoria Sterling fell silent. I expected her to use her demanding tone, or perhaps money, to make me stay, as she had before. But she didn't. She looked at me deeply, then nodded. Okay, your final pay and bonus will be transferred to you in full. I thought that was the end of our story. I returned to my small, poor, but peaceful Appalachian hometown. I spent my days feeding the livestock, working the small garden, and playing with the neighbor's dog. The restlessness in my heart slowly settled. I thought I would quickly forget the city woman named Victoria Sterling. Until that afternoon, a sleek black Cullinan appeared on the single dirt road leading into our holler. All the dogs in the village went absolutely crazy, barking their heads off. I was in the pig pen, ladling feed. Hearing the commotion, I peered over the fence and froze. Victoria Sterling, wearing a crisp black suit and those signature high heels, stood at the dusty entrance to the village. Then, under the curious gaze of every villager, she walked directly toward my pig pen. I looked at her. She looked at me. Behind her was a $1 million luxury SUV. Behind me were grunting hogs. The scene was absurd, like a dream. My head started to throb. What are you doing here? She took a deep breath, nearly coughing from the unique odor of the hog feed. She fought down her discomfort and walked right up to me. Jax Miller, I was wrong to look down on you before. I was also wrong to try and understand you on my terms. Her voice lacked the corporate ice and aggression, carrying instead a slight, noticeable nervousness. Then, she did something that made me and all the spying neighbors stare in astonishment. She bent down and took off her impossibly expensive high heels. Barefoot, she stepped onto the ground, which was a mix of dirt and chicken manure. She looked up at me, her eyes full of sincerity. Now I'm standing here, not Ms. Sterling, just Victoria Sterling. I love you. Will you give me a chance? The world fell silent. The only sound was the slurping of the hogs, eating their feed. I looked at her clean, white feet, now covered in mud. I looked into her stubborn, honest eyes. I felt the hardest part of my heart being lightly, yet profoundly, touched. I didn't answer her. I pointed to the small wooden stool my mother used for kindling. You stay here for a few days and see if you can take it. Then we'll talk. The final wager Victoria Sterling actually moved in. She stayed in my sister's leaky little room. From that moment on, our quiet little holler was never peaceful again. Day 1. She tried to learn how to cook using the wood-fired stove like my mother. She ended up looking like a soot-covered raccoon and nearly set the kitchen on fire. Day 2. She tried to help me in the garden, only to scream and run like a scared rabbit when she saw a few harmless garden snakes, convinced they were water moccasins. Day 3. She tried to experience the joy of feeding the chickens and was chased across the yard by our highly territorial rooster. She provided endless comedy and became the new source of gossip for the entire village. But she never once complained or cried fatigue. Every night, she used our spotty, terrible rural internet connection to process billion-dollar contracts. During the day, she clumsily followed me, attempting various farm chores. I watched those hands, once only used for signing documents, now blistered and stained with dirt. I watched that face, once cold as winter, now frequently sporting a goofy, genuine smile. I knew I had lost to her perseverance and her endearing clumsiness. A week later, just as the rooster was chasing her for the umpteenth time, I stopped her. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a plain, home-baked biscuit, offering it to her, just like that first time we met with the sandwich. She froze. I smiled. First thing, if we argue later, you're not allowed to throw money at me. She took the biscuit, her eyes immediately welling up. She nodded heavily, then took a massive bite. Chewing, she smiled, her voice thick with emotion. It's sweet. 6 months later, Victoria Sterling invested in building a paved road connecting our village to the nearest town. She also built a new elementary school in my sister's name. As for me, I was given the position of Chief Safety Consultant at the Sterling Group, a high-level, non-executive role. I didn't have to report to an office, but I had final sign-off authority on any major project safety concerns. On the construction sites, my former colleagues respectfully called me Mr. Miller. No one dared to look down on a tradesman again. I had proven that making a living with your hands was nothing to be ashamed of. Another evening, in Victoria Sterling's lavish CEO penthouse, overlooking the entire city skyline, we were sitting cross-legged on the expensive Persian rug. I was chewing on a toothpick, teaching her how to play rummy. 3 of a kind. I fold. Rummy. Gin. Stop. She threw down her cards, glaring at me angrily. You cheat every time. I grinned, taking the toothpick out of my mouth. A wager is a wager, Ms. Sterling. Go on. Wash the dirty clothes I wore on the site today. She rolled her eyes, muttering about how Jax Miller is the real capitalist, but obediently walked toward the automated laundry room in the corner. Watching her silk-robed figure pinch my sweat and grime-soaked work clothes, I noticed a smile on her face that she didn't even realize was there. I knew then. My days of hauling concrete were officially over. The end.